fiancé's family banned me from our home after he dies. I'm going to preface this by saying that brevity is not my strong point, sorry. It was hard to know what to include since there's a lot of backstory. If nothing else, writing this felt good because it was a very traumatic time, and getting it off my chest is helpful. Hopefully no one thinks I'm the entitled one. Also, I'm not sure how well this fits in this sub since it's really about an entire entitled family. If you know somewhere it would be better suited for, let me know. Oh. My fiancé, N, died very unexpectedly in 2016, at the age of 35. I was 26 at the time. We lived together in a house on a few acres. I'd lived there for a couple years, and he had lived there most of his life. N's grandfather built the house, and when his grandparents died, the house was willed to their 6 children, one of whom was N's mother. When N's mother died, her share was willed to N and his 2 siblings. So N was a partial owner of the home. His aunt, R, also lived there. She was mentally unstable in many ways I won't get into, except to say that she was a serious hoarder. Consequently, the house was in disrepair. Honestly, it was not fit to be lived in and could have easily been condemned, but it was a rough time. Please spare your judgment if you can. N and I were in the process of getting an apartment when he died. Since N and R were the only partial owners living there, they paid all the property taxes and for repairs, etc. I contributed to after I moved in. It's not like N and I were just squatting there or something. A couple months before N died, I had some health issues that resulted in her being hospitalized and then moving into an apartment. That's when the entitled family, N's aunts, uncles, and cousins, swooped in and started demanding that we move out so they could sell the property. Okay, fine. We were planning on moving anyway. They were really unrealistic about the timeline though. At one point they insisted that since we were low income, all we needed to do was contact the government to the power of TM, they weren't sure what department, and they'd just give us a small house and some land. That's how out of touch with reality these people were. They'd just show up in the house whenever they wanted, which I guess legally was their right, but it's also pretty rude and entitled to just come into someone's home on a regular basis without even speaking to them while you're there, much less letting them know beforehand. Anyway, when N died, they were unabashedly elated. 2 days after he died, I was at the house collecting some of my things when I got a text from his sister, who is an angel, so we'll call her Az, saying that they'd messaged his out-of-state uncle's wife, asking her to message Az about me because God forbid anyone be direct. Apparently they wanted me banned from the property immediately. We'd been living in sin, and now that N was gone, I had no reason or right to be there. I was devastated. At that point I wanted to take everything he'd ever touched and scoop it up and hold it close to me forever. I couldn't bear the thought of not being able to have anything of his. As an afterthought, I realized all of my stuff was also still there. Luckily, Az stuck up for me and said I could be there as long as I wanted. She lives across the country though, so she couldn't do much to enforce it. The most egregious display of disgusting entitlement/general assholishness happened a couple days later. I was at the house, frantically trying to load up the car with the things that made up the life that N and I shared together, which was taxing both physically and emotionally. I was crying when N's cousin, EC, appeared in our bedroom. EC, smiling like I'm an old friend she just ran into each other at Costco. Hey, isn't this crazy? N died so suddenly. He was fine a few days ago. Me, through tears. Yeah, it was very unexpected. EC, laughing. I know. Well, at least we can sell this dump now. It's then that I hear people talking and laughing in the next room. Apparently EC had brought her teenage daughter and several of her daughter's friends to gawk at the house. Our home, where we lived and loved, was being openly mocked with zero regard for my feelings. EC, so when do you think you'll be gone? Me, I'm not sure. I'd like to get as much of N's stuff as possible, and has asked me to get some of their mom's things. EC, frowning. Well, I guess I'll have to talk to us about that. The mom is the reason this place is so run down, you know. Laughing again. I don't see why Az would want any of this garbage. Note that this is blatantly false, as the house had been in pristine condition until N's mother died and R's hoarding worsened to the point that N could not keep up with it. Also, there were plenty of keepsakes and heirlooms that were not at all garbage. I'm sort of dumbfounded by this whole exchange and way too emotionally drained to deal deal with it, so I just get back to what I was doing. Later that night, EC's sister messaged me asking what I'd done with us box of plastic horses. I wanted them back immediately. Of course, I had not taken it. Why would I want a box of plastic horses? Hint, I would not. I elected not to reply. After that, they got more aggressive about me not being there because I was a plastic horse thief. N was an artist by trade, and they started just throwing away all of his drawings and taking some of the more valuable figurines he had. Last day I was there, my mom went with me. After getting the last of what I could, I just wanted to walk around the house one last time and sort of say goodbye to the place we'd spent so much time together in, a place I'd never be again. Of course, the family showed up, and my mom tried to calmly explain that I would be out soon and would not return. She tried to appeal to their sense of humanity by explaining how traumatized I was from his death and how I just needed this for some semblance of closure, but his aunt got in her face and lectured her about how N was in hell and I'd be going there too. Then my mom, who somehow managed not to knock her teeth out, reminded her that Az had told me I could be there. The aunt responded by calling the police to have me forcibly removed. We left before the police arrived, and now that's my final memory of the place where the most amazing man I've ever known taught me how to love. I'm sorry it's a bit anticlimactic, but this really was cathartic for me to write. If you've read this far, I sincerely thank you. Wow. I posted this before work, and I come back to this outpouring of love and support. I wish I had time to reply to each and every comment, but just know that your condolences are very much appreciated. Also, thank you for my first silver and gold. A couple things I want to clarify. I'm a woman. The living in sin comments were just about us living together before marriage. He died of either sepsis or a pulmonary embolism. The hospital said one thing, the me said another. I appreciate everyone saying I may have had legal recourse, but at the time, my entire life and all my future plans had been ripped away from me. It was not worth spending the little energy I had to try to drag it out any further. His sister and brother were his legal next of kin, and he did not have a will. Since his sister told me to get all of his and their mom's things, I was never worried about them coming after me for stealing any of it. So sorry for your loss. Cherish your wonderful memories of the man you shared love. That family is horrible. I hope karma smacks them in the face 100-fold. That must be hard. Your fiancé died and then his family are being dicks to you. Sorry for your loss. The fact that the family laughed is awful. I am so sorry for your loss, op. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm not a big believer, but I have big respect for dead. The way that they show their disrespect to SMTH being memorial of their family is infuriating. And finally, my condolences. I'm an atheist, and so was he, but they are very religious. His uncle is a pastor. They were such awful ambassadors of their religion, which made it even more disgusting. Thank you for your condolences and for understanding that you don't have to be religious to be respectful of the dead. Entitled Mom Wants to Skip the Line, gets a lot more than she wanted. Edit, conversion for temperature, 35 degrees Celsius is 95 degrees Fahrenheit. A need to know detail, it was F/N hot. It was about 35 degrees Celsius, but it felt like 44. Important detail for later. So I was standing in line at the checkout at my local supermarket. I think in total I had about 10 items, some frozen goods, drinks and snacks. I usually tend to take out one of the buds of my phone so in case someone addresses me, I would hear it. At this time, the woman at the cash register was taking care of the payment of one client and there was one person in front of me, and then suddenly she appeared, the M in this story. Now honestly she didn't look it, she didn't even give off a mean vibe or anything. Even the way she started talking to me was overall nice and polite, at first. Excuse me, do you mind if I skip ahead? I'm in a hurry. Now in general if somebody politely asks me this and I don't have any urgent business of my own, I usually don't mind. This time however, I didn't have that many groceries so her delay would be at most a few minutes, while she was pushing a fully loaded shopping cart in front of her. So if I would have let her skip, I'd probably still be in the store for another 10 to 20 minutes. So I politely decline and tell her I will hurry as much as I can. Of course this was a great offense, I had not given this woman her entitlement. She blew up instantly, yelling and screaming at me that she was in a hurry and, not kidding here, had to be home in time for her shows. Now at this time I would like to point out that during this rant she only said she had to be home in time for shows and that they were very important to her. There was nothing else making this urgent for her. This is important a bit later. Now while this woman was going off, the person at the cash register went into ignore mode and just started scanning my groceries, which I loaded into a bag while the M was going on about how I was garbage and they should ban me from the store. Now this should have been the end of it. Just turn around and go home and forget this happened. But then she said something that made me almost want to kill her too. Made this a postable story. While I was walking away, just about to put the earbud back in, she yells, "If you pass by my car, tell my son he's the reason he has to wait another half an hour for me." Now I'm not an extremely smart person, but in this moment my brain made some connections quickly. What I realized was this: 1. Again, it was very hot outside. 2. This woman had been in the store for a while, judging by the amount of groceries. 3. The entire parking lot of this store had almost no shade. 4. It was about 2 p.m., so the sun was just over its peak. I rush outside and start running past cars, scanning them for kids inside. Thankfully, one of the first cars I pass is a small child laying in the back seat. This kid is as pale as a ghost, sweating like crazy, and it looked like he was only half conscious. I run back inside, and to my utter astonishment, this banana is having a conversation with the cashier while she's checking out her groceries. I grab her by the shoulders, spin her around and yell almost straight to her face that her kid is literally dying in your car. And if you don't do something right now, I'm smashing in your windows and calling the cops. At first she looked at me in complete confusion, probably never been spoken to like that before in her life. And the realization of what I told her sunk in and she rushed outside. While she went outside, a man tapped me on the shoulder and asked what had happened. I explained the situation, actually leaving out the bit at the cash register, just saying I saw the kid in the car and knew that this woman was probably the owner. He went outside, and when I came outside, the M suddenly rushed me and got in my face saying I was the reason she was in the store for so long and her son's current condition was my fault. Before I can even respond, the man that approached me earlier speaks up. Turns out this man was an off-duty cop and had been in the store for a while, and as such knew that the actual delay caused by me could have not caused this. He also said he had already called an ambulance for the kid and the cops for her. I don't know what happened to the M, but she completely crashed. She just sat down on the pavement and started shaking her head, not saying much except the occasional sob or "not my fault." As for the ending, everything turned out okay for most parties. I stayed a while to give a statement to the cops and my contact info in case it went to court. The kid was okay afterwards, and since his mom got arrested they called his dad or another male family member, I didn't ask, to accompany him to hospital. As for the M, I'm assuming she's going to have to stand trial for child endangerment. Not sure if she'll just get a fine or jail time. Update: I was contacted by the police a few days ago, last Friday. Went to the station where they went over my statement, asked if I wanted to add or amend anything. I said I didn't. They couldn't really tell me directly what was going to happen with the mother or the family in general, but said that the standard punishment, when the child is not seriously hurt or dead, is usually a gas fine. GAS stands for Gemeentelich Administratieve Sanctie in Dutch and Municipal Administrative Sanction in English. I think it's kind of sad something bad has to happen before serious punishment is handed out. I do not know what the amount of the fine will be, but as for me it couldn't be high enough. I have not seen any of those people in the store or in the area in general, but I also don't know if they live near here or were just passing by the store by coincidence. Or maybe they are just avoiding the store, that's also possible. It will probably be the end of this tale. I know many of you hoped for something worse for the mother, but sadly, life is not fair, but at least the child lived, and let's hope the mother learned a lesson. How can you be so stupid and leave your child in a car? Disgusting. TBH, the shows probably did mean more to her, thoughtful face. I saw a similar situation. It was cheesecake hot outside and went into a store where I stayed for about an hour, and when coming out I saw a crowd gathered around a car. There was a little boy in it, looking half dead, soaked in sweat, and people were trying to get the door open, but it didn't work. Luckily a couple of big burly bikers came and smashed the windows in with their helmets. People pulled the kid out and gave him water to drink and poured some over him to cool him off. Ambulance and police came, and when police was taking statements, the parents finally showed up with bags from multiple shops, showing they'd been taking their sweet time. The worst part is that instead of worrying about the kid, they started screaming at everyone for damaging the car and ordering the police to arrest everyone. Needless to say, they were the ones arrested. It ended up on the local news, and I think the kid was put into foster care. An applause for the bikers, and jail time for the parents. I hate those kinds of people. Edit, first time on Reddit commenting, and I did not expect this amount of upvotes. Edit 2, I was not aware of r/award speech edits. Now I look like a brat. So the kid was in the car for so long, no AC and no fresh air. She left her kid there for probably about 45 minutes since she filled up that entire shopping cart. The car is in the sun and it's 35°C out. That kid nearly got fried. I bet it was like 45+C in the car at some point. Could have killed the butternut kid if it took her that other half hour to finish up at the register. That kid is butternut lucky that she mentioned it to you, Op, and that you acted so quickly. Otherwise the kid probably would have been dead by the time she returned. Temperatures can get as high as 60 degrees Celsius within 60 minutes. Why do people keep doing that, zucchini? So good you took action as fast as you did. I don't think you understand that. 1. You saved a child's life. 2. You saved this child from a probably cheesecake and neglected childhood and therefore life. 3. You managed to piece together all that from listening to an M, which few could do, the piecing together. Well done, the world needs more people like you. Make the Nazis less horrible for my daughter. You know the deal. Not my first language plus I'm on mobile. So sorry in advance. It's a short one. So I'm from Germany and we have some NS museums in different places to remind us of the horror and inform visitors of what happened in the specific area of Germany they're visiting. I was visiting one when I heard a child cry. Not a baby that didn't know better, but a toddler. Sounded genuinely upset. Enter entitled mom. I hear her loudly complain about a video and how this isn't child friendly at all. Now first of all, in these museums it's cheesecake quiet. Second of all, they are not supposed to be child friendly. They show raw horrible pictures that show a brutal truth and most adults are left speechless. It can turn your stomach sometimes. Employee, I'm really sorry it upset her. This museum is suggested for ages 14 and up. EM. How is she supposed to learn? Now that kid was 3 max. You can maybe talk to them about it, but these museums are clearly not for kids. It even says so on the website. Now I'm already invested in this when mom goes on about how they should have censored that. I turn around to see what they talk about and my heart sinks. It's a video of piles of dead, starved, naked bodies they found in concentration camps. It's a horrifying thing to look at. And this lady complained about some genitalia being shown. I'm pretty sure the kid was crying about the overall visual and not some dicks. The employee looked shocked and she has clearly never heard that complaint before. He confusedly offered to refund their tickets and the lady angrily agreed. Some people. Edit, banana guys, thank you so much for my first Reddit gold. I can't believe it. Coconut M refusing to accept the horrors of the past only allows it to be repeated. Yeah. I'm most upset that this woman clearly didn't grasp it herself. Now I'm wondering how the people at the front desk or similar station let her through. I was thinking the same thing. She had a buggy though, maybe they've mistaken it for a younger baby that would just sleep through it. Yeah, that's one of those parents who are 100% convinced that their kid is a genius, and to prove it they let them take enough IQ tests until the results are right. Germany has loads of them. Exactly. Age 3 to 499. 9,999% of children can't comprehend what happened and how it still affects the world. I'm all for teaching your kids stuff early, but covering complex military conflicts shouldn't be taught to a toddler. Most kids learn the basics of World War II in 5th grade, like 11, maybe 12. You walk into a Nazi museum and expect it to be sunshine and rainbows. But it's not a Nazi museum. It's quite the opposite. It's about the victims. The perpetrators don't deserve a museum. This is an important distinction in Germany. I visited the museum at Bergen-Belsen and it was probably one of the saddest things I have ever seen. While I was looking around the displays in the main building, before going outside to what had been a camp, I saw a group of about 5 or 6 German soldiers, recent conscripts. I believe as national service is still a thing in Germany. All of them were mortified. At least 2 were in tears and saying nie wieder, never again. Walking around the grounds of what was the camp was probably the most humbling thing I have ever experienced. Walking round the grounds and hearing literally nothing, no birds, animals, nothing. Even the wind was barely there. Edit, this was in 2002 when I went there. Luckily that's something you experience sometimes. Many seem to have to see the very bottom of what they were defending to see it was wrong.